Hi guys, so today we have an amazing episode on sustainable fashion. It's so broad, but anyway, I'm really excited to discuss this with two people that I really look up to in this category. One is Bandana Tewari and there's Sanjana Rishi. So Bandana, for those of you living under a rock, she is a sustainability activist, advocate. She is a lifestyle editor and journalist. She was the editor-at-large at Vogue India for 13 years. I mean, she's had the most amazing career in fashion. And then Sanjana, of course, by education is a lawyer.
Yes.
But she is also a social media and sustainability advocate. So I'm so excited to have you both beautiful women doing something good and spreading like a good word out. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and the whole idea is just to have a really casual, chill chat, guys.
Yeah.
So I don't want to start this on a downer,
Yeah.
but I'm just going to state some facts because I feel like when it comes to the impact of fashion on, say, the environment and even on people, the people they hire, etc., is so large that sometimes you cannot express how bad the situation is without some facts, right? So this is from Business of Fashion. They did a report on the value of excessive inventory held by luxury's biggest players and what it amounted to by the end of 2022. So it's basically their inventory,
Right.
like things they couldn't sell for whatever reason. LVMH was left with 2.7 billion worth of inventory. Kering Group, 1.3. Richemont 0.9, Hermes 0.8, and Prada 0.09. Now, imagine if all this inventory is left over, where is it going?
Yeah.
It's a bit scary.
But also imagine, these are legacy brands,
Yeah.
right? So
Luxury.
their markup is so high, so the volume may be less.
Volume's less.
Imagine our fast fashion.
Fast
What kind
fashion
of-
is even worse.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a few things about fast fashion. I'm sure you already know, but it's just nice to know some facts. 15 million used clothes arrive in Ghana every week from Europe, America, and China, and fast fashion items make up most of that. 40% of the clothing shipped in Ghana never finds a second life and ends up in landfills, which is an environmental nightmare.
Of course.
And then this next fact to do with water, it's shocking. The fashion industry uses 93 billion cubic meters of water, which rounds up to 4% of the fresh water globally, and is enough to meet the consumption of 5 million people. People don't have water, and we're wasting it on fast fashion. I mean, these are just some of the facts. There's so many. I mean, if you do some research.
And I'm sure you do this when you're doing your talks and
Yeah.
your advocacy. Like, how do we distill this kind of statistics that suddenly you sort of zone out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if I told you, like, this T-shirt takes the same amount of water that you would require to drink for 2.5 years,
Yeah.
it's absurd, but it's true.
All of a sudden, it's
Absurd.
in context,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
like what your personal consumption. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So like, Bandana, let's just start by breaking this down because sustainable fashion is such a broad category and there's so many advocates and there is some greenwashing and it's a bit confusing for people. What are the different categories within sustainable fashion that need to be looked at? First of all, there's ethical fashion, which talks about how much are you paying the laborers.
Right.
Are you using child labor because you should not? Then it is, of course, fast fashion. How much are you left with? How much inventory are you left with? What are you doing with that inventory?
Right.
Then it's how much water are they consuming? So could you just
Yeah.
break it down for me?
So if you look at how the United Nations defines it, right?
Yeah.
There are different pillars of sustainability.
Yeah.
So one pillar is economic.
Yeah.
One pillar is social.
Right.
And then there's environmental.
Yeah.
And now there's a new one, which is cultural.
Right.
Right? Because we all live within a culture.
Right.
So especially in countries like India, which are deeply rooted in heritage, it's important that we talk about cultural sustainability.
Yeah.
That's what leads to the craft culture.
Right.
Economic is obviously about all the resources that we use,
Yeah.
right? And the kind of people that are hired, the factories that are built. We can easily say things like, oh my gosh, Bangladesh makes so much fast fashion at like really minuscule profit and people are being exploited. But if you were to take away that business from Bangladesh, the GDP will go down. So economic iterations of sustainability are very important to assess, because it's easy for us to sit, you know,
And talk
in
about
our
it.
comfort zone and say,
Yeah.
oh, they shouldn't be making those clothes there. But that is the
That's
bread
a
and
part
butter.
of their economy.
So how do you...
But then they should be paid fairly then, right?
Of course,
There was
so
a
that
huge
comes
protest.
under social,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So fair wages. You know, we did a big talk in the United Nations several years back to represent and to introduce what we call the home worker economy, because people forget that majority of the workers in fast fashion industry are women, and most of these women are actually living in villages, working from their charpai with their 2 kids sleeping under the bed.
Yeah.
And she's probably embroidering the butterfly in your H&M t-shirt. Yeah. Now, they're not represented by labor laws. They are not given any medical care. So they're invisible. They're invisible in this fashion environment, in this fashion industry that goes into trillions and trillions of dollars. And so you have the social. Then you have the cultural, because culture is like the roof that keeps all of us together. And environmental, where we talk about water, soil health. Like, you know, we keep forgetting. Like, you can't talk about clothes. Sorry, I'm ranting. I'll
Please
stop
do.
after
We are
this.
here to
I
listen
just want
to
to say
this.
it's literally a pleasure and a privilege to hear
Yeah,
Bandana Tewari talk about something that not only am I passionate about, but that's been your life's work for so many years. So please.
I mean, slowly by slowly.
Yeah.
I cannot take the credit. There are people who've been working in this field
I'm
for 30,
sure,
40 years. I feel like a novice, and I'm still learning. But, you know, it's funny, like, because we come from the world of fashion, we're so divided. Fashion belongs here, with your nose up in the air. When, you know, today when we talk about fashion, we have to talk about agriculture. Cotton has to be planted. It's a seed.
Yeah.
And cotton takes up so much water.
Yeah.
And it becomes monocrop. That means it kills other varieties. So farmlands are becoming dry. You go to Rajasthan, you go to Gujarat, it's the aridity of the land is what's driving people to leave their villages, leave farming and come and work as drivers, vendors, whatever, in big cities which are already overcrowded.
Exactly.
So if you say fashion exists in its own stratosphere, you're wrong, because it involves everything from the soil health to how much water is being used, to the pesticides that's killing killing our bees.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest pollinator that actually allows us to thrive in this ecosystem. So to just say, oh, it's just clothes, you know, that's such a misconception, because we've been taught by an industry, and I was part of the industry, to distance you away from every other factor that involves how I spend my money. We're supposed to spend it blindly. And that's what we've been taught by consumerism.
That's what benefits, that benefits brands. And those brands advertise in magazines. So it benefits those magazines and editors indirectly. So it's all kind of connected.
I was talking to someone in the fashion industry, and this was when the last round of farmers' protests were going on. And they were like, oh, you know, like, I can't be concerned about this because I work in fashion. And I was like, what do you think farmers do? Like, do you think that, and, you know, it's not just food that farmers grow. It's they're growing the cotton, they're growing, I mean, unless you're buying 100% polyester all the time, this does affect the industry. And it's something that then wasn't spoken about, and still to this day, like, not a lot of people are speaking about the connection between farmers and farmer welfare and fashion and what we put out there. So, I mean, really grateful that we're talking about it here.
Yeah, and I think we have to, like, really deep dive into the choices that we make and the misconceptions that we carry forward, because let's say we are told that polyester is bad, right? Because it's petrol-based, fossil fuel-based fiber, but it takes up very little water. You don't wash it that often. It doesn't get dirty as often as cotton, for instance. So when you come to a developing nation and someone on the street thinks he can buy a polyester that lasts longer, that uses less resources, because he doesn't have those resources, you know.
And it's cheaper to buy.
Who are we to say that he is making the wrong choice?
Exactly.
So it depends on the situations of countries. Scandinavian countries that do a lot of work on sustainability, for instance, right? They do all kinds of innovative fabrics, and they're bringing out vegan leather and blah, blah, all of that. You know, the population of Denmark is like 7 million people. That's not even what I look out of a kitchen window in Bandra.
Right.
I mean,
you have a car accident and that many people.
They can afford to talk about sustainability and pay higher prices because they have a smaller population. So what kind of conversation are we supposed to have in a country that has become the most populous
It's all
country
contextual
like
to where
ours?
you are.
I think it's so important when we talk about sustainability in fashion to, like, be so context specific, especially somewhere like India where, in the US, the conversation around sustainability is like, okay, everyone just stop shopping now. But the reality is that if in the West, people stop buying stuff, the impact and job loss is not happening there. It's happening, right here in our backyard where, the big garment export happens from here, right? So, and considering how important textile is to our cultural heritage, it's just, I cannot speak about sustainability generally. I want to be so focused on this economy, this circumstance, these people, the demography here, which is a big deal, and it's true. I mean, not a lot of people can afford the price point of sustainability. I can talk about buying a handloom cotton sari all I want to, but I do not think that the average Indian can go out and buy a handloom
So
cotton.
what's the answer then, for example?
That's a great,
honestly, no one can be sustainable completely.
Of course.
It's very difficult. But what is the answer for people who do want to shop or need to shop? Is it then to only buy secondhand?
So
Is that the answer? Is that the answer?
One of them.
One of the answers,
Buying pre-loved clothes, as we
Pre-loved,
call them,
secondhand,
right?
vintage.
Secondhand,
Just-
because they keep recycling the clothes, and that means that someone has to look after the clothes to be able to resell it.
Yeah.
So then there's caring for the clothes. What I usually tell people is like, look, we are human beings who are driven by art and culture and aesthetics. We want to buy a cool looking t-shirt, a beautiful sari, and we love seeing the creativity. So we're not saying don't buy. At least in my role as an advocate, I say buy less and buy things of value.
Yes.
When I say things of value, that means, you give your clothes a certain narrative that you don't just throw it away. As I keep saying this, I would never throw away a shawl my grandmother gave me.
No.
Even if there were so many holes in it.
Exactly.
Because what does that mean to me?
Yeah, it has
So I have
value,
given it that sense of nostalgia, of value, that I will not throw it away.
Yeah.
So when do we start looking after our clothes? Like, we are wearing clothes every day. So every time someone says, oh, you're in fashion, you're a fashionista, the clothes shouldn't matter. I said, then walk around naked. And tell me this is not your second skin that you should be worrying about. So let's not devalue clothes to the point that we buy things for like...
It's needed, so like...
a t-shirt for like 150 rupees, you wear it twice and then you forget about it, it'll go into a bin, that bin goes into a landfill. And today there's one garbage truck of clothes are being dumped into landfills every second.
That's crazy.
As we speak. Can you just imagine?
No.
Like for me, that becomes... that imagination of this dumping makes me want to not buy so much.
Yeah.
And again, that dumping somehow finds its way from, the West developed economies into what we call the global South. And, this like fast fashion to me always reminds me so much of like this colonial economy system
Because
where
they're dumping it to
not just that, but you're also taking the human capital from here to make the products. You're using the raw materials from here to make the products. Then you're processing everything, outside of the country, selling it there, and then flooding back the same market with,
junk.
Yeah, with junk, basically. Yeah. And then once that junk has reached the end of its cycle in the Western countries, you're then just dumping it right back into the economies that really gave you that to begin with. So I think it like really kind of has this very strong parallel to what happened to our textile heritage here with colonialism, where the British came in, took raw materials, processed them in the UK, and then flooded the market here and just completely destroyed, the handloom industry, the cotton industry here. So it's just something we need to just have a more holistic view on things. And the truth is that even if you buy less in this economy, we have to create alternative employment opportunities for people who are right now doing, I was talking to someone recently who was telling me that they visited these Zari workers. And before the factory came in, and so there's there's a lot of big luxury brands abroad now that will get their embroidery and like the intricate work done here in India. And I mean, Dior's been talking about it, and now it's become this thing. And they said that, they asked them, do you prefer to be in the factory doing it this way, or did you prefer your life before? And the reality is that we don't really value handcrafts in the way that we should. So these same people were sitting in, their workshops, which were obviously like that's their home. So there's no standardization, there's no safety stuff in place. Right. So they're just doing handwork and they were getting paid, let's say, 15,000 rupees a month. Now at the factory, they're getting paid significantly more every month. And there is some amount of safety standardization. There's some amount of just benefits that they're given. They're allowed to be in an air-conditioned building or a fan building. And so these are things that I think we sometimes miss when we're thinking about like the impact on people, the social impact of fashion and where it's going. So we need to be able to create employment opportunities for people where they're not also having to decide between struggling but keeping their craftsmanship and working in a factory full time. So
I think we have to keep in mind that this is where cultural sustainability comes in.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it may seem that there are more benefits working in a factory. It dehumanizes people. Now, when we are talking about our Indian rural lands or whatever, a designer who did a great job of what he called reverse migration is Rahul Mishra. And what he did was, he's like, no, go back to your villages and you work from there. Yeah. Today we are connected through social media, WhatsApp, and go back and live within your community. Because uprooting the idea that the factory provides you, factories especially far away from their own little hometowns, is going to be more empowering over time, is debilitating for an entire nation. It uproots a family.
And their standard of living sometimes in villages is a lot higher. Well, they're breathing cleaner air to begin with. Yeah. They have more space to live.
Yeah. And you're detaching the art from the ecosystem that made the art, the artist from the ecosystem that makes the art possible, right? So like, and Anita Dongre does this a lot too, where with Ajrak, rather than have people come into the urban centers and do Ajrak work, she actually outsources that work to the cluster in Gujarat, which is such an important thing to do and something that we don't always think about that makes a big impact, not just on those specific artisans, but also on that craft.
And in fact, she takes it to another level because I've done one of the field trips with Anita Dongre in Gujarat to meet the women, the artisans who are doing this beautiful embroidery for her jackets and what have you. Now, these are communities of women. You go to the villages, it's packed with young girls and mothers and grandmothers. All the men have gone to the cities to look for new jobs because the land is arid. They used to be farmers. And the women would do supplementary, money would come from doing embroidery work and what have you. So what she does is now she's like, as a designer, and I think this is so important, we can't just create beauty for beauty's sake because now we're hitting crisis stage, right? So she's like, when I go onto the drawing board and plan a collection, I will decide this community needs work. That is the kind of embroidery that they do.
Lovely.
So she now makes a collection based on.
Based on honestly, for me, Anita Dongre is really the gold standard of what sustainability, especially in the luxury space, but even more generally, needs to look like. People, planet, animals, like that's how when I'm like, oh, is this a brand or a label that's sustainable to me? I think about, it's just an easy way for me to break it down. Impact on people, impact on the planet, impact on animals. And I think with Anita, she's just like all three of those are things that she thinks about so deeply, like constantly. And I just really appreciate that. And there's a lot of Indian designers, honestly, who have been doing it. Like,
I think the younger designers who have literally grown up in the climate crisis period, they don't have a choice but to think about sustainability as a business practice.
But like I would say Gen Z and people even say in school, they are, maybe because they're growing up in a climate crisis, they're definitely more aware.
Yeah, they can't deny it, right?
No, they're very sensitive to this in their shopping habits, in what they talk about, in so many things. Do you think this generation, yours and even younger, are completely going to help move this needle even faster? Because millennials are just,
I'm very much a millennial. I'm
okay,
pretty,
fine. So say
Gen
Z, for example.
I mean, I hope so.
But they do seem more.
They are more
on the
aware
ball about this.
Research shows that Gen Z started with the millennials. They are definitely more aware and they demand a lot more from the brands that they buy.
Millennials are hit or miss, I
They
feel.
question the brand. Now they have access to everything on their smartphone. So to Google what kind of a brand it is, does it give back to the community? What kind of sustainable practices do they have in their business? It's easy now. It's in your hand, the information.
Exactly.
And of course, greenwashing aside, today brands are beholden to give those kind of information. You can't build a brand and not have any sense of responsibility as to where your cotton comes from, how you're paying your employees.
So
Now you have to tell them.
I have this really funny story. I can't tell you who. I can tell you later. But a journalist, senior one, was talking to me once, and she was complaining about you.
About me?
Yes.
Oh God, what have I done?
Saying that you were asking too many questions.
Oh yeah.
And
I know exactly who
And
it
my
is.
thing was that, like,
Isn't that the point?
what's
of
wrong with
tell me who it
asking
is,
questions? I will tell you. But I'm like, what's wrong with asking questions? If you are claiming that you're doing X,
Yeah.
then if somebody asks you a question, just answer, yeah, I'm doing X like this. You know
Also,
what I mean?
like, you're asking too many questions is like a very quintessential, like, I've been in the industry and
No, but that's
I don't
the
want
thing.
to question.
People are supposed to ask questions, like you said. Like, everybody's answerable now, right?
Absolutely.
So why not? Like, if you don't answer my
Also,
question,
I mean, like, it's my platform to promote sustainable brands, right? So I have to ask the questions because I also need to be answerable to the people who
Yeah.
come
Who follow
to me
you.
for that. Yeah.
I know, yeah.
It's like, yeah,
Looks
if
like
I ask-
someone's greenwashing somewhere.
yeah, exactly.
It's not you.
So you do these thrift Thursdays?
Yeah, Thrift Thursday, yeah.
She's
Which
this really
is,
cute thing she does on Instagram, where every Thursday she'll like do an outfit where she's like, what she's thrifted.
Okay.
You
and
know?
it just honestly,
Yeah.
like, now I don't always, and I should more, think about what I'm doing as like a piece of content, but the reality is that that's my shopping habit. This is thrifted, so these
Yeah.
are thrifted, you know? So
Yeah.
for me, that's just my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And sometimes I forget that I need to put that out there to kind of
everyone
normalize it. But, you know, it's true. I mean, it's easier to thrift. And of course, there are communities that cannot thrift. There are communities that cannot afford maybe the higher price point of, I don't know, like a Kala cotton versus a polyester. So I think it's important to just put what I'm doing out there because there are other people that can and don't.
But you're making it cool, right?
I
That's
hope
really
so. Am I
important.
cool?
You
I don't
are.
know.
You
I
are.
think
No,
we
it's
need
true.
to make it cool
And
and
normal.
fun. Like,
Yeah.
sustainability
Exactly.
is sexy and hot and cool.
Exactly.
Like, for too long, sustainability is like almost
Oh, that
like,
kurta pajama with the jhola. Oh, you're an
Yeah.
activist. Like,
And
those
now
anti-fit,
it's
yeah.
cool to
we
look
have
out
to make
for
it
your
cool to make it
environment.
normal, right?
Yeah, have definitely made kuchipuri cool.
I try at least.
For sure.
I mean, it is super cool, just
Yeah.
that nobody knows
Yeah.
about it, because they always put everything in a bracket. Oh, classical dance means
Right.
one big bindi and very boring, and like everybody has these preconceived notions.
Yeah, really, one of the big questions for me, and I think that's one of the things that I love about Bandana's work is how do we talk about sustainability and everything by uplifting the cultural heritage of this country, because we don't ascribe the value to it that it deserves, and therefore people don't think it's cool.
When you look back at the history of the men and women who have fought for sustainable rights, which we never got to talk about, read about, or whatever, it's the most humbling experience.
Yeah.
So the idea of looking out for your environment, the idea of being an advocate of sustainability, it is a humbling job. So
Yeah.
when I see the arrogance that comes with greenwashing, arrogance that comes
There
from just
should be
saying...
no arrogance. That's the
because
idea.
it defeats the purpose.
You're
idea
moving
of
back.
sustainability is the humbling
Yeah.
of your role and your consumption habits. And so suddenly the whole dialogue flipped, and then everyone just wants to sort of look good but not do good.
Yeah.
I have two questions. My first one is, because it's a process, right? I know vegetarians who carry exotic handbags. No, this is not even vegetarian. I know gens who don't kill flies. I'm like, that fly is really bothering me. Do not kill flies,
they'll
but
have
they
an
carry
Hermes.
alligator or they'll carry like an ostrich skin handbag. And I'm like, I just don't get it. What is happening here? Like,
So again-
do you think we all are hypocrites to some degree?
You know what the fashion-
I mean, including me, but do you
I think
that?
everyone's
Yeah,
hypocrite,
we
for
are
sure.
definitely
Yeah.
hypocrites. But again, we've been trained
Yeah.
to this
Yeah.
false narrative, this
Yeah.
hypocrisy, because look at the way we look at fur or leather.
Yeah.
The processing of leather to make it into your handbag has so many stages: polishing,
Right.
scraping, blah blah. By the time that skin, which looks red, sore, rugged,
Yeah.
it's from the back of
Animal.
an animal. By the time it reaches your hand, it's polished clean. We don't associate it with the animal.
You don't
So
associate
you have
it.
already been distanced from the fur that actually furry, lovely animals have been skinned alive.
Yeah.
So you can have your fur coat. But by the time it reaches you, the softness of it, the color has changed.
I mean, it looks nothing
We
like
are
the
Yeah,
animal.
yeah, of
completely
course.
Yeah.
the disassociation
Yeah.
between animal skin, animal fur, the cruelty that is imposed on these animals to the product that we hold is the false fashion narrative. Because we are never told the backstory.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to hand over to you after this, but I really recommend everyone watch a film called Slay.
Slay.
Slay, S-L-A-Y, which
Yeah.
is about slaying animals for fashion. I mean, I've got goosebumps talking about it. It is horrifying how blinded we are by the idea of a richly made product and the backstory of the massacre that takes place.
Yeah.
So if you were to watch a fashion show and put an animal for every piece of animal fabric, leather bag,
Accessory, yeah.
you'd have rows and rows and rows of animals watching a
Or
fashion
people
show.
who are like such animal lovers, you know, and
Slay really, I mean, you know, I know Rebecca, she's the director. I played a small role. She made this film during COVID. And because a lot of the leather comes from India. Leather industry is huge in India. And it's quite hypocritical, yeah, because killing cows is
Illegal, I think.
illegal,
Yeah.
all that lynching that was happening, and yet we are one of the biggest producers of leathers in the world.
and actually beef. So,
But
like, we're
also,
one of
like the
biggest
leather
exporters.
industry now, it's just like so complicated because it's a livelihood of so many people, like the
Yeah.
leather industry at large, right?
Yeah.
So
But the
it's
thing
like-
is, leather used to be called a byproduct.
Yeah.
Right? Because you ate the animal because you need to survive and you eat the animal. But today the leather industry thrives on its own.
Exactly.
There are farmlands, millions and
they are
millions of
farmed
acres of
particular
farm.
for this,
With
particularly
industrial
for this.
farming,
Yeah.
which is done entirely for leather. So it is a massacre factory. Now what happens to agriculture in this is that the farmlands, which was meant for grazing, where 20 different types, varieties of fruits or vegetables are supposed to grow, they have to be
being
cleared
used.
out because you
Yeah.
need the land for the animals. Right? So you are spoiling an entire ecosystem. So this is called industrial farming. That is one of the most detrimental things that is happening in our environment.
Not to mention most food crops that are grown to feed livestock.
Correct.
You know, people don't have that idea when they think about even the farmers' protest again. Like even when they think about what farmers do, they think, oh, they put food on our table. No, they grow cotton for your clothes. They, you know, grow corn
would
to
make their own
feed the cattle that
fertilizers.
make your milk. They raise the cows that then end up becoming, and that takes up more. That's more land use than it is used for actual human
So
consumption.
then tell me this, how does like say an average consumer of fashion, say a girl who loves fashion, the vegetarian eating exotic bag holding lady,
Yeah.
if she really genuinely wants to try, but like take like a few steps, like what would you suggest? Because the luxury industry is run by these kind of people because they are the consumers, right? So what should be the first couple of steps they should do in their whole life to head in that direction of being more sustainable?
I mean, and it's such an important thing
Yeah.
because if you're in that like luxury headspace where you want to buy, you know, a nice ostrich
So buy
skin bag-
secondhand.
buy it secondhand
Yeah.
and like just appreciate the fact that, and the thing with especially Western designers now is vintage is cool and it
course it's
actually
cool.
it ages better. It's an investment piece,
Yeah.
right? Like if you buy a Chanel bag new today and then you sell it in 20 years, you're going to sell it for more than it's worth now.
Yeah, as long as you take care of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, and we still have a ways to go to get there in terms of Indian luxury brands, but with the bag brands
no,
that are
but
coveted.
with the clothes with Indian brands, it's there. Like my Tarun Talyanis at my saris or outfits my mother bought in the 90s, I still wear it today because they're just so well
Yeah.
made and they've been preserved well.
Yeah,
you know?
but I'm saying for resale value, like
Yeah.
consumers
Yeah,
haven't
resale
had that
value, yeah.
They don't have that mindset yet. Like this is a vintage, covetable. You can't reproduce this kind of thing. And so, but with bags, which are largely you want to buy those designer handbags, if you buy them secondhand, it's actually you get more unique styles.
Yeah.
You can
So
resell
that's a good
them.
way to
That's a
consume.
great introduction. Even fur and leather. Like if you are going to buy it secondhand. If you have the means to do that, then why not do that?
Yeah,
You know.
for the luxury consumer.
Yeah.
What do you say, Bandana? What else can they do?
Well, in my advocacy, I always talk about personal change.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not a policy maker.
Yeah.
I'm not an innovator, so I can't tell you that, okay, from algae you can make silk. There
Yeah.
are others who are doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they're experts in this field. What can I do? And I have a very Gandhian approach to it because Gandhiji started a revolution based on take personal responsibility
Yeah.
for social change, for
Swadesi.
social
Yeah.
impact,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Khadi movement is such a great example of, you know, one man telling an entire nation, village by village, give up the
Produce-
clothes that are coming from
Make your own.
from
Yeah,
the mill, from the factories in London,
Yeah.
and pick up your spinning wheel as an act of
Yeah.
civil disobedience.
Yeah.
You know, as an act of economic
Independence.
Independence,
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's what people did, all
Yeah.
of it. I mean, look at the power of that singular voice.
Yeah.
And that we always started with make the changes that you want to see in the world. You have to
Exactly.
make the
Yeah,
changes,
yeah.
right? So I always say, what can I do for myself?
Yeah.
So some things are very simple to me. I don't buy leather.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot be an advocate and then continue to buy leather.
Right.
Right? In the past, when I didn't have any sense of consciousness to these practices, yes, I do have leather jackets and all. Have I thrown them? No.
No, you wear them.
Yeah.
Did I wear them?
That's-
With a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
But I also say a little bit of a silent prayer and say thank you. for
Yeah.
have,
It's already
you know,
been bought.
Yeah.
So,
This goes back to such a fundamental question. How much do we need?
yeah.
Like, it's a very fundamental question,
Right.
right? Like, how much do we need? If I start asking myself that,
we don't need much at
automatically
all.
I'm like, do I need the 10 bags?
No.
For what
See, the
reason?
thing is, capitalism has redefined what it means to need something.
No, the thing is, when I was pregnant,
Everybody comments on an Instagram post saying
Yeah.
need,
Need,
right?
but you
like,
don't need it.
Obviously, it's not
Yeah.
a need, but
It's
people
just-
do see consumption that way.
No, because we're just dramatic about it. And like these brands, especially luxury brands, fast fashion brands, advertise things so beautifully and well that you feel like you need it, but you don't.
But it's also the idea that
Yeah.
you need it to fit in, right? Like for
Yeah.
a wealthy South Delhi girl, she needs that same bag that everybody has because everybody has it, and
see, that's the
you
funny
don't
thing.
want to feel like you're the outcast
Left
in
out.
this
What
situation.
hole is that filling? So, on the surface, it's the need for a thing.
Yeah.
But if you dive
That's what it
inside,
is, yeah.
it's a need for something else.
It's the need to fit
It's a
in.
need for validation. It's a need for whatever.
Yeah.
You don't belong. Your self-esteem is low.
Yeah.
Therefore, this fancy bag is going to walk you.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
not
It's
the
a
other
status
way around.
symbol.
And it's a
right?
need for
status.
status,
So
yeah.
Status symbol
we tend to replace happiness
with things.
with things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
And
we
it
are
does-
not
I mean, it's
addressing
called
a
retail
deeper-
therapy for a reason,
And it
right?
does give
retail
you-
therapy is replacing.
It does give you that momentary high,
Yeah,
right? Of like
yeah.
buying something and thinking like, yes, I own this thing, I wanted it, and now I have it.
Yeah.
So you have satisfied a desire, and that makes you feel good, and then you become, and brands rely on you to essentially become addicted to that quick little thrill of shopping. So then you just
And
keep
it's-
doing
it's
more and
all-
more.
I mean, there's a word for it, omnomania. I may be mispronouncing it, but it's shopping mania.
Yeah.
It's definitely
and
a
if
mania.
you talk to
Yeah.
neuroscientists, for instance, they will validate that when you buy, your serotonin level spikes
Exactly.
up a little bit. And so fast fashion worked on that premise.
Ah.
That earlier it was, you had slow fashion in the sense. You had autumn winter season, then you have
Right.
spring summer. You weren't producing all the
Mass,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fast fashion started doing it weekly.
Yes.
They
Yes.
started changing
52
window
a
dressings
year.
weekly. So that spike is like today, me going through my TikTok videos, happy, sad, happy, sad, happy,
Yeah.
sad, adventure, then failure, then cry a little bit, then laugh a little
Yeah.
bit. You think neuroscientists are not working with these tech companies? All of them work with neuroscientists.
Of course.
To see how our hormone levels are going to peak.
How can we
And-
make people addicted
and
to
so-
what we're selling them?
And
Is
so
like the
clothes
question.
do the same thing. The quicker you change it, that's why trends, like this trend today, everyone's like, I have to get that, I have to get that. You feel high a little bit. Then you don't have it, then you have to go
It's
back
madness.
again.
It's literally
So
madness.
we are being played.
We're being played, yeah. I just want to ask this too before we go. This has been such a fun chat. What about shopping ethically in the sense of buying from brands that say do not support genocide with the political climate right now? When this whole crisis happened in Palestine, there were certain brands that only donated to Israel, did not donate to Palestine. There were certain brands that took a very definitive stance. A lot of them were trying to be neutral, but something like that. Or a brand that has been in the news for hiring child labor. Or a brand that has been in the news for paying these Bangladeshi women way below like the normal amount to pay as a wage, Like, how does one navigate oneself if you want to be an ethical person, at least to make sure that these brands are not harming other people?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Again, personal choice. If I stand for something, if
Yeah.
I stand for a political, whether it's Israel or Palestine, or I stand up for the women who are being marginalized and disenfranchised in Bangladesh, your personal ideology can play into your consumer behavior.
Definitely.
I choose to spend my hard-earned money in the places I choose to. So what I buy either supports or doesn't support something.
Yeah.
That's the power of my money. Which
And
we
every consumer is very
underestimate.
powerful in this
Yeah.
way. I think everyone is always like, because I've had conversations with my friends being like, listen, this brand is a bit, and there's so many options. It's not like if you stop using 2 brands, you don't have other options.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, what is one client going to do? But I feel like client to client, it really makes a difference, right?
Yeah,
you can make an
absolutely.
impact if you choose
Absolutely.
to not to do
Again,
something.
the power of your wallet.
Yeah.
But you also, I think one of the big things is you don't know always who they're supporting, what the agenda is, like, and also because of this, like, also growing idea of this, like, fashion and beauty conglomerate system, right? So many brands have so many different names, but really they're all
belong to the
owned.
same.
They're all owned by
You know,
one umbrella. Yeah.
Like,
Please watch.
But you can do research on this.
is it called?
There have been certain
Like-
brands that have taken out press releases that we're
Yeah.
going to only support XYZ. You know?
of course, but like,
Yeah.
for example, if, oh my God, I don't want to like name brand names and get in trouble, but like
Yeah.
Estee Lauder, right?
Yeah.
Like they are known for supporting Israel. But it's not just Estee Lauder, it's also then MAC, Bobby Brown, like there's what
Same
you
umbrella.
lose-
They all own-
You
Yeah.
lose, exactly, they're all owned by the same, you might know it about one and not know it about the rest of them. But I do think that most people don't even know it about the one, so then
You can get as involved as you
That's true.
wish to,
Yeah.
right? So remember the time when fashion revolution started,
Yeah.
who made my clothes? Who would have thought that something could be tagged and then the brands were accountable? Who made my clothes? You could tag Zara and say, who made my clothes?
Right.
And it became a worldwide revolution.
Right.
And it continues to the day. Now that's gone to another level. So now today we have something called Extinction Rebellion. It's very political, extremely radical in the approach to environmental issues, including fashion, of course. You have to go online to see what kind of radical protests that take place with. So, do you want to get that involved? You can.
Or you want to
It is
simply just not buy from a
not buy.
person
Or
that you
can
don't
you be more
support.
educated? I mean, just watch Kingdom of Dreams, the documentary that is, you can get it online. It shows how the whole fashion industry is divided between the 2 worlds, the LVMH world and the Kering world.
Exactly.
And how it started. And that happened in the beauty business.
and it's
That's
happening
the
in
per-
India now with luxury brands, right? It's like
Absolutely. It's a great documentary to watch because we can literally see the germination of it happening in our own country.
So between documentaries, a lot of like articles online, I mean, if one really wants to get into it, you can do some research. It's not like the information is not
Absolutely.
out
It's
there.
all there.
you can follow us anytime you want
That's
to.
true
you
also.
know.
Yeah.
So
that's true. What have you learned from Bandana over the years?
first of all,
Because when I called her, she was really excited that she was going to have a chat with you. So clearly she's a fan. I mean,
I'm
so
a
am I.
huge
But
fan.
yeah.
But
I'm a fan of yours.
So many things. Okay,
Incredible.
so first of all, just individual style, because I think growing up, we didn't see so much of like Indian style represented on, like kind of a fusion style represented the way that she was doing it. And then also like the work that she's done around talking about the textiles of India, the crafts of India. Wow, I could go on for a really long time. How she consciously made a decision to leave something that was so otherwise lucrative, and she could have done anything in that industry and still can and still does it a lot, and made the conscious decision to do something better for herself and for the world around
And her kid, she moved to Bali, put her
And
kid
her
in the green
yeah,
school.
and I just love her.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Thank you,
But
thank
yeah.
you, thank you. No, well, I'm an admirer because, it's so wonderful to see young, happy people who, like we want people to be joyful in
Yeah.
a quest to look after the environment.
Yeah.
We don't want to be...
It can get you down.
It's not a dukhi enterprise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be joyful. And I think this burst of youthfulness,
Mm-hmm.
enthusiasm, and I see you in the same events that we go to, and everyone's dressed beautifully, and everyone, there's a certain language and gait, and so suave, and I'm like, wow, we need generations of women like this to be
Yeah.
advocates.
Yeah.
Because
We need
wanna be
generations of women like
joyful
you
in
to
this.
be advocates.
Well,
'Cause
both
I do
of
feel
you.
Like,
Both
I
of
do
you.
feel like there's a lot of like frou-frou out there, and it's like people need to be individualistic. And I think that's such a big problem with fashion now is everybody just wants to be this aesthetic,
Look the
this
same.
core,
Yeah.
that trend, So it's like, I think that what you represent to me most like importantly is that individuality. And I think once we bring that back to the conversation on fashion, on personal style, instead of just following trends, and actually I love trends, but I think trends are about going into your closet, seeing what might
Work.
work for this trend. And then being like, oh, like, for example, this mob wife aesthetic or whatever, it's like, I posted about this, I was like, this is just South Delhi girl in the winter aesthetic. Fur, big hair, and earrings, I think we know where that came from. The gold jewelry, like that's us already. And just like incorporating that into your personal individual style. And so I think that once we bring that back into fashion also, people will stop just trying to buy the next trend, which will then fuel these trend-based fast fashion companies a little bit less.
Okay, really quickly, this conversation is like way over, but we all have girls, which is kind of interesting. We all have one girl each, mashallah. But what is it that you're gonna teach your girls about fashion and about sustainability? Or maybe you don't even have to teach them, they'll just learn from you. What do you hope that they learn from you in this regard?
For me, it's to buy less, which I think my daughter is pretty well trained now.
Yeah.
I think because she had a mother who was so into working in Vogue, and that was her formative years of like coming to my office, and then
she's also got some good hand-me-downs coming to her someday.
You know, surprisingly, she didn't want any of it. When I left for Bali, I didn't take much. I took 3 suitcases, my daughter, we just held our hands and we said, basta, we're going to go on a new journey and new adventure. At that time, I did ask because I had to pack up everything. In fact, I gave away all my Vogue goodies and what have you. I said, do you want me to keep a box for you in case in the future, some Chanel bag that she wants? Nothing. And even today, she's got an incredible personal style.
Yeah.
She is in Berkeley studying music, and she's training now to be a music therapist, working with children with Down syndrome.
Wow.
And so she really does, she loves her clothes, she loves her personal style. But when you find a purpose that is beyond passionate and you know, beautifully overwhelming, then fashion is just one of the things
it's
that's
one
going to
aspect
sustain
in your
you.
life.
It's not everything.
Yeah.
So she's not going to be defined by the bag. She's not going to be defined by the brand. And I'm not saying fashion is not important. It's just that it's just one of the many things that make us interesting in the way we present ourselves to the world. But if we say that is the only thing, then
that's where the problem is. Then you become a victim of all the brands and all the marketing. You're a victim then. What about you?
I think, again, individuality, just making sure that she, not just in her fashion choices, but in general, remains true to herself. And then also, I think for me, it's really important that she connect with the cultural heritage of this country. So,
what about you?
I have bought a lot of vintage. I have bought a lot of secondhand. It's just a part of who I am. I wear my mother's hand-me-downs every single day, including today. There's not been a day where I wear something of hers is not on me. Or then if it's not hers, then it's my nani or my ammi. So this is just a part of who I am. So I'm hoping that it just becomes a part of who she is, you know. Well, I was never a fashion victim because I was very individualistic. Nobody could influence me, not even marketing from a brand. But I would buy a lot. And I think, I don't want to, my mom is awesome, but I think I learned this from her, I guess. My sister never picked that up. She couldn't care less. But then as I grew older, I realized that I need less. I realized that I end up going back to my mother's wardrobe. I end up going back to vintage anyway, you know? So I think, thankfully, I had my child a little later. By the time this whole, you know, being this crazy consumer kind of stopped.
Definitely.
You know, thankfully, I'm very grateful for that, you know? Thank God I wasn't raising her in my 20s where I was just wanted to buy everything. I don't know what it was. Clearly, I was filling some void, you know? But
all of us will.
Anyway,
all of us. I mean, we continue to.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's a question of like, it's the way you look at things, right? You look at diamonds and we say diamond, it's carbon. I mean, if you had to cut it down to the fundamentals, it's carbon, it's coal.
Yeah.
So when I wear all my jingle jangle, which is now pretty much shells, bones, and what have you, like I find them as valuable as pearls and diamonds because these are stories. I mean, these have been blessed by shamans and priests, and you know, they're picked up in my journeys in life, and every bead matters to me. And it's, for me, that's precious because I can tell you the story of the islands I've been to from just this hand.
Yeah.
So the value of things is the value that we give to it as storytellers.
Yeah, value is a construct at the end of the day. Even monetarily, value is a construct. We made up that this thing costs this much on some level. So if you ascribe value in, you know, not just money but other things, then truly value can be found in everything. So yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, ladies. This was so much fun.